Hello, everybody. It is now 7:30, so you belong to us.
Well, they cheered for that. That's
They
good.
cheered for that. I like this
You don't
energy.
know what that entails, and that's so valuable. Thank you.
I hope you have had a lovely first day of MAGFest so far. We usually do our panels on like Saturday nights, so doing this before everybody's partied out is like really cool for us.
Yeah. Everybody's a little compass mentis.
Exactly.
Right now.
Everybody's still a little compass mentis at this point. We have a lot to cover today, so we're going to dive right into introducing ourselves and rolling along with it. Hi, everybody. I am first seat driver Raven at Atlus Formula One Racing.
Hello, everybody. I'm second seat driver Rinny at Atlus Formula One Racing. Okay, hang on. This is not official. This is not sponsored. Formula One, Atlus, please don't get mad at MAGFest for our silly joke.
This is an extremely, I think, obscure joke about this game, and we're not going to say it on stream or in the recording. You'll have to ask us afterwards.
We'll see if we have time.
We'll see if we have time. Also, hi Twitch chat. This is being live streamed. Everybody say hi Twitch chat. Nice to feel included. So with that, let's get rolling. In 2017, the webcomic Recovery of an MMO Junkie received an anime adaptation. The anime is a romantic slice-of-life comedy about two office workers who come to know each other through an MMO, and the director does not believe the Holocaust is real.
This caused a general amount of upset, but the anime community sometimes struggles to condemn bad people, which is a really cool footnote for the current state of the everything right now.
Now, some argued that enjoying a show directed by this disenfranchised Nazi propagandist is harmless, and to be clear, the original artist is a cool person. But some people argued in favor of Roland Barthes' death of the author for why it was cool to watch this. These people, like the director in question, are fundamentally wrong about history. In this case, these defenders are failing to cite an essay that they have never read and will never read, and this is a shining example of why we educate you all on death of the author. And if you're wondering why it's essential we educate you on death of the author, it's because Doge was a meme and not a federal agency when Atlus wrote Metaphor ReFantazio.
Death of the Author is an essay by Roland Barthes. It is about 6 pages long, and reading it is absolutely free, which is kind of a hurdle that's too high for a lot of people to climb. It's right there.
Yeah. We're gonna actually read it right here now in full. I'm just kidding. Could you believe it? That would kill the momentum. That would be awful. No. But it is actually all right there. It's free. Go read it sometime.
It kind of fits on a whole slide.
No, it's pretty educational.
Yeah.
I'll summarize. Roland Barthes argues that the author of a text only exists in the past. Love him. Whereas the text they created exists in the immediate, eternal now. The text lives on without them. The meaning that we take from their work exists without them. It's okay to take meaning from the work that the author might not have. You don't need their permission. This panel represents what we took from Metaphor ReFantazio. If you think the developers of Studio Zero did not intend it, we disagree. But as far as the thematics of this panel are concerned, the developers are as dead as King Hythlodaeus IV. Long live the king. I think a valuable place to start is some political context. Now, Metaphor ReFantazio follows a young protagonist and his allies as they travel and do battle to sway voters deciding the next ruler of the fictional kingdom of Uchronia. It is a story about systems of belief colliding in a high-stakes election where opinions about how the country should be governed run up against the harsh realities of everyday life. It released 3 weeks before the 2024 presidential election, and everyone ended up drawing some parallels whether we wanted to or not. Let's start by talking about, actually, our bad guy. Good takes.
We want to knock something first, like out of the discussion. Louis, our main villain, is not Donald Trump. You can probably find overlaps. You know, Louis is a populist who exploits people's fears and hatred to rally around his cause. But if the dev team has any political label, he would probably be a libertarian. It's very hard to really grasp him because he's way too handsome to really, really narrow down.
Given that he is our opponent and this game is about an election, I think it's worthwhile as we parse what the game means, intends, and wants us to walk away with to kind of pull apart exactly where he aligns as we go. He espouses primarily might makes right, which is more of a right-wing populist ideal than a libertarian one. Libertarians take individual freedom as paramount. Might makes right, which is his like highest level thing, runs contradictory to that. He is, from what he says, socially left, but pretty structurally right. But the thing is, with him, that idea that the strong must rule above the weak is what matters most to him. It just comes across as equality to all of us.
Interestingly enough, when we say the policies are masquerading as what's the word?
Egalitarianism.
Thank you. The problem here is that Louis does not take into the context in which people are stuck in. He doesn't take the context of their class, the stations of their birth, or even if they are capable of achieving their potential, their mightiest might. And because of this actually isn't equality. This isn't actually treating people fairly. He's just saying it is because he's the bad guy, and bad guys are wrong.
And if this gives any points to it, a friend of ours says he knows exactly one person who hates the game and they're a libertarian, so, maybe that actually moves the needle a little bit. Taking Louis as he is within his own context, however, we know that, number one, he really hates the fictional church at the center of their world, which, fair, as we all come to understand, he is poisoned by cynicism. He is unable to view hope and empathy in the way that our protagonists are able to. Aggression, hurt, can only be met with greater, more overpowering aggression. No one can ever forgive. And when groups are divided, they can never come together over the other. What must be done is that the power must be leveraged over the weak in order to achieve what he sees as balance.
Like I said earlier, he does not take the context of people's situations, what they were born into. And the belief that divided groups cannot work together is something that he really sticks to, despite some later twists that come into the game. Louis,
we're gonna say some mean things about y'all and some nice things about y'all, and I want you to know that it's not gonna be personal.
But in sharp contrast to this is our hero. The hero of Metaphor ReFantazio does have a personality, he does have opinions, but unlike other Atlus games, this one is a little bit more direct. These come through within the protagonist's systems, within the actual gameplay of the game. Far away from the usual social stats like charm and do you study good, we have social stats like wisdom, eloquence, and tolerance. These are the royal virtues within the game that you want to upgrade.
And to be honest, rarely do you get a game telling you its moral and emotional priorities quite as much as a game putting an important system labeled virtues above tolerance and knowledge and wisdom.
Despite being one of the most oppressed tribes, they're called in Metaphor, the protagonist is actually a very kind individual. They struggle a lot. A lot of people don't like him around, they find him gross, all the usual racist garbage that happens. But he doesn't hold ill will to those above him. Instead, he's an individual who wants to help people, who is kind, who wants to protect people, but critically, in the beginning of the game, feels as if they are not suited to lead. They are not suited to take action, and instead, we all sit there and lament together. However, The protagonist draws inspiration from fantasy. There is a book that the protagonist loves dearly, and it's very, very precious to him. And from that, he's able to take action towards a better world through the inspiration he gains from it. The inspiration allows him to consider more things about systemic challenges. He's able to speak to people and learn about their plights. He's able to learn about refugee crises and intolerances to other races within the game, and critically also able to speak to the other candidates that are looking to be in this electoral race. Something that we find really special is also that growing from this inspiration, the protagonist is able to take that empathy take that kindness, and gain reputation amongst their community and their friends as an ally. Even, again, like I said, listening to what would be the protagonist's opponents in this race.
I find it so genuinely beautiful that the protagonist comes from a place of hurt, of long-standing oppression, and of struggle. And what the protagonist reaches is this belief that beauty must be pursued for everyone, that liberation and freedom must be pursued for everyone, and not ever that I had it hard and so other people should have it hard too.
Something that we also find really important that metaphor takes into place is that the protagonist learns the plights of others and never takes their voices away from them. The protagonist spends a lot of time hearing them out and actually becoming a leader that people follow because he's able to provide a space where people can have a voice. And critically, as we said earlier, the protagonist did not believe that they were suited for leadership, but through this kindness, through empathy, through education, taking the time to actually get to know the communities and the loved ones he has, he is able to become a leader that people follow.
Taking our hero and villain together, we can truly begin the process of distilling what does this game believe, or at least what do the people involved believe. Both Louis and the protagonist agree that the Church of the Kingdom of Uchronia desperately needs to be reformed. They both believe that racism is baked into the foundations of their society. You can't just do better or believe better. You must structurally change it, tear down what was to build a more equal future. They both believe that collaboration between divided groups can't happen so long as there are bad actors inside of them, drawing greater conflict and suspicion between. And they both believe that oppressed groups deserve to have their voices heard, their stories known, and justice delivered on behalf of them, even if they disagree on what that justice looks like.
The difference between the hero and Louis is that the hero recognizes that there are people who aren't trying to do good. There are people who are doing their best with the situation given to them, while Louis believes that there is nobody who can do this properly but him.
Fundamentally, we think that when you look at all of these laid out opinions, the hero and our party are unique because they have hope and believe that a better future outside our existing structures is possible. But where does that hope come from? Now, the book about a utopia by Moore that everybody reads and is inspired by is probably based on the book Utopia by Thomas More. And so,
just a hunch.
We are going to talk a little bit about both. Now, Utopia by Thomas More, not the hot More. Utopia by Thomas More proposes that this is a land where there is no private property. Goods simply exist to meet people's needs, kept in warehouses, distributed as they require. All able-bodied citizens work, and as a result, everybody who is able to be employed is, and work days are shorter because everyone pitches into the best of their ability. Labor is not attached to happiness. Your happiness, value, and joy does not come from what you contribute to capital. Value should come from your leisure time. However, Utopia is not perfect.
There are a couple of things in Thomas's utopia that this panel takes issue with. For one, every house should have enslaved peoples. Women need to confess their sins to their husbands every month. I don't know if they swap off on different things that women have to deal with that month, but you know.
Or is there one really rough week?
Yeah. And also, premarital sex is completely punished. It's super forbidden. And this is, to me, a very strange kind of like juxtaposition from the kind of positive stuff on the top.
And Moore does not present these things in the book as if they're equally awesome. However, these are presented as things that he needs to dwell upon as he thinks about what he would like the world to be like moving forward. And just as a cool crossover fun fact, the ruler is always a prince in there. So that's why we got this cute prince we got to save. Also, any Final Fantasy XIV kids in the room, the capital is named Emerald.
Look at that reference, wow.
So,
do you think there's a big DMV in there?
I think there's a big DMV and everybody's like, you know, Greek, I guess.
Yeah.
Our book about a utopia by Moore.
The hot one.
The hot one. In the book that everybody reads from and is inspired by in Metaphor, all of the world is one tribe and no one is born into discrimination. Citizens have freedom, rulers are elected, power cannot be taken by force no matter how much you want to. People are secure, they are safe, and they are happy. However, this too is not perfect. The world this refers to isn't immune to being torn apart by divisions, by hatred, by war, and by conflict, and their own utopia must be fought for.
Now, these negatives are not as extreme as the negatives above.
Not exactly.
But I do find it very interesting that even within the fictional universe of Metaphor and the fictional utopia that the protagonist reads, there is still issues of conflict and war, and that's something that a lot of the characters going forward think about. So let's put a pin in that.
This novel is aspirational. Everybody who reads this mystical utopian fantasy novel in Metaphor comes away from it changed with belief in a greater, better world, or at least the inspiration to fight for it. And so, taking from it, what do we think are the values Metaphor is telling us are important? All people should be treated without discrimination. Society should benefit everyone according to their needs. Leaders should be elected through a just and fair process, and people should be free to pursue their own way of life. This is text in the game of Metaphor ReFantazio. But what makes the fantasy valuable to the characters in the narrative? What does it say is valuable about fantasy stories? What do the characters take away from it? Bonds. All of us who have played Persona games before Metaphor called bonds social links. We still do all the time. They're not really social links, though, due to some pretty integral structural changes in Metaphor.
In Metaphor, a lot of the Bond stories are actually a lot of the inspiration that the characters take from the main story and also from the stories that happen within the Bond stories themselves. They are different character arcs where the characters get inspired by a lot of the things that are happening around them, and also through the book that the protagonist keeps lending all his buddies to check out.
Each character's individual side storyline in Metaphor is not about completing a personal arc like it often is in Persona 3, 4, and 5. They're usually someone takes the lessons they've learned, the struggles they've had, where they've developed in the main story, and then we see them run off with that and change the world just a little bit. We want to go through a few, not all characters. Stroll, best boy. Not just because... He reads about this utopian world and totally agrees it sounds nice, but he just doesn't see it. He just does not see how it could come to pass because he questions where things stand with the democratic process. A decision made by the people does not, he worries, necessarily mean it's the right decision because the majority race in their world has the largest say in government and they are not able to see outside of their own privilege. We stan a king who checks his privilege. His arc becomes one of grappling with the fact that he is a member of the most privileged tribe in his society, and he wants to figure out how best to disperse the benefits of this privilege to the many. He gets into this where he talks about his questions about how his own people would reach out and understand outside of themselves. Does a decision by the people guarantee it's right? Tribal squabbles are not always political. People are not necessarily going to vote according to just politics. Take us. It can be hard for us to see outside the bubble of our own worldview. We are the majority, and we are the tribe of the royal bloodline, and our privilege can make us insensitive. We stand.
Another character that comes from a prestigious place within the universe is our great girl, Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg is born, I know, yes, please clap for her, I love her. Hulkenberg also comes from one of the privileged tribes within Metaphor. Often they're parts of royal knights, high places in leadership, or high places in the church. And she reads about the leadership within the book of the utopian story that the protagonist gives her, and learns immediately that they have their leadership have to have accountability. To her, that's crazy. There's no way you could do that. That's amazing. That's exactly what she would love to do. But she feels that the world that they live in wouldn't be so dire if there was a way to make leaders accountable for what they did, for what they do and how they treat the people that follow them. In her arc, in her story, it's really important that for her, she is able to see that the power that is held to account is not a fantasy, but at the moment it is. It's something that she has to strive for, something that she really wishes were true. Her arc in her Bond story is that she encounters a corrupt authority figure from her life, and she sees the ways in this person has abused her, abused other people, and abused their station. And it's up to her to recognize that she can make this person be accountable for the wrongdoings that they have.
We have Bat Dad.
The true best boy. Let's be real. Best man.
Best man.
That's a dad.
This little guy's a man.
That's a father.
Gotta put it back on. Heismay reads the book, and he reads about people not being discriminated based off their appearance, as he is a member of the tribe called Ujif, little bat guys, basically. And he believes that people not being discriminated off of their appearance is really, really, really far off. If not impossible, society's really far from there. He believes that if people are not judged by their race or their tribe, they might just end up being judged by something else. That if you simply wipe away the things that make people different, people are going to come up with ways to still not come together. This is the core of his doubt. And his storyline is complex. He faces struggles within his own society because he ends up being too Ujif for the outside world. But when he attempts to convene with his own people, he is suddenly too outside world for the Ujif.
This is something that I did relate to a lot, and I know a lot of people relate to if they come from various backgrounds or different cultures, or if they've immigrated to different places. And the idea that you want to hold on to your culture, to yourself, but also there are parts of this new culture that you want to take in, that you find valuable, that you find beautiful, but there are people around you who will not accept that. To me, was a very, very meaningful storyline within the game.
Absolutely. My fave. And I didn't think she would be, but I love her a whole lot.
Yufa is a very, very sweet girl, and she has a lot of place in the story to discuss the aspects of the religion and how that affects the culture of the world of Metaphor. She focuses on the religious freedom that takes place in the book that everybody's reading, and she finds that very, very great. She has an understanding that their world, the world within Metaphor, has been torn apart by conflict, by anger, by hate before, and she directly points out that it's critical that we do not repeat that history, that we make it so this cannot be something that will always be an issue. Additionally, Yufa, coming from one of the tribes that has a religion that is looked down upon within the world of Metaphor, confronts the religious intolerance within the world and also the misunderstandings that people have about her faith, and her belief throughout her Bond story. It's important within Yufa's story, and also in the context of metaphor, that these religious freedoms are important, and that the solution is not to get rid of religion entirely. It's not to look at the Sanctus Church and tell yourself there's no value there, but it's instead that people look at each other's history, at each other's tradition, and grow and treat each other equally despite their belief systems.
But there is one other person who read the book and took something very different from it. And that brings us back again to our man, Louis. Louis is defined by taking in knowledge or goodness and doing the opposite of it.
A lot of laughs.
Your costume's lovely, but I did warn you. He is born to a family of doctors, and he masters curses. He twists life into something terrible, even though he could uplift it. He is in this conflict over the throne because he is pursuing a force of order and power to unleash chaos and anarchy. He keeps a fantasy of hope, this book, inside of his home, but he finds no hope, fantasy, or inspiration within it.
Louis looks at the story, the book that the characters within it read, and thinks you're all very dumb. He looks at it and he sees it as idealistic garbage, and instead he thinks that what he can do and what he can provide is better than even this book.
Louis' folly is the one that the developers are begging us not to make. Louis considers the fantasy book everyone reads to be nothing more than just a story, to show that we should not make that same mistake with our fantasy story. In 2017, the same year that some Nazi loser directed this adaptation of an anime, Atlus released an RPG entitled Persona 5. Hold that for a sec. I'm about to say something mean.
We love Persona 5, but
we do love Persona 5.
But also, come on, Persona 5.
Persona 5 posits a view of modern society in which people are slotted into dedicated roles and must become iconoclasts in order to break free of their responsibilities. The heroes do battle against oppressive societal issues, misogyny, criminal issues in the justice system, the older political hegemony, and seemingly by accident become agents of political youth unrest. Sick, obviously.
It's very cool that they do that.
In the best ending of the base game, though, the party does not reshape any elements of culture, government, or society. A later installment reveals that one member aspires to become a cop.
Something that Persona 5 looks at is the conflicts within the story at an individual level, and instead thinks that, well, if you can fix this one guy, that's good enough.
Persona 5 ultimately argues that what is needed to change the world is not reaching outside of yourself to do something. All you have to do is just look at it differently. This is very subtly implied when it is word for word the last line of the game. What the downtrodden, the discriminated against, the wrongly arrested, the abused are meant to do by you personally looking at the world differently is very beyond me.
It's very frustrating because Persona 5 does spend a lot of time focusing on these issues.
Casting a light, for sure.
Yes, and recognizing that a lot of these issues, especially that young people suffer, are things that we should deal with. But to us, it's the opinion of the panel that's simply going, well, you know what, don't think about it, isn't very helpful, and it isn't contributing much to actually discussing and talking about what's going on.
But this is notable because in the years since Persona 5, this same creative team worked on a game overwhelmingly about the importance of struggling for wide structural material change, accepting as fact that broken systems must be changed, stopping only to ask how we find hope and inspiration to do the work. Over and over, metaphor posits that inspiration is magical. Over and over, the inspiration must meet the insistence that you need to get out and do the work, no matter how terrifying that might seem, to push what feel like impossible limits. Director and writer Katsura Hoshino said one key phrase for metaphor is facing your fear. Depending upon the person, fear can either paralyze somebody or maybe even cause their decline, but it can propel people forward. Depending on how we view it, it can push us somewhere outside of our comfort zones.
In the political world of metaphor, there are people who are striving for power, striving for change, and people who are just trying to get through the day and trying to inform other people about what the heck is going on. What is important and what's something that we want to think about here is that the game is not trying to condescend to those, like many of us, who are just trying to live, who have jobs, who have rent and bills to pay and responsibilities that eke out a lot of joy in slithers of your life throughout the modern struggle. But it does hold firm to the idea that change cannot happen without overwhelming, consistent, and dedicated struggle. As the saying goes, you may not screw with politics, but politics will screw with you. And maybe that's a lot, and maybe that's a little difficult to look at for a thrilling turn-based RPG fantasy adventure, especially for all of that to leave us with. But Hoshino said, in the same interview as before, speaking on what it means to actually face your fears. Fear may sound like a simple theme, but that is because it is so simple that we hope people don't walk away thinking, oh, that was a fun video game, that was a fun momentary escape. We can go back to reality where nothing has changed. Rather, we want people to feel something about their life and maybe feel empowered, encouraged, or otherwise through playing our game.
We don't live in a realm of archetypes or elven knights, but Will and Stroll and Hulkenberg don't live in a realm of megaphones and live streams and Instagram. We cannot strike down villains with the power of almighty magic, but 90 million Americans didn't even use the power they do have to vote. Our heroes gathered their courage because in their hearts they knew the world around them was wrong, and no matter how forsaken it appeared, there was nothing to do but to resist into hope. Hoshino, again, in an interview with Gene Park at the Washington Post, said that hope is progressing towards something undefined and undetermined by you or anyone else. And through this, I wanted to make sure that people aren't just confined in the story and in the world wasting time on a game. I want them to take something away from the experience, something that would help them reflect on their daily lives, because there are so many creations in the world that stimulate or move people, and that, in effect, affects reality.
Hope can be challenged over and over again, and day by day, it can falter, but metaphor screams at us that change is possible and hope can never truly die, but it must be met with work, it must be met with effort, it must be met with confidence. It takes power, Hulkenberg says, to walk the path of our dearest hopes. So because of that, and because we are very grateful to be here presenting this to you, we also didn't want to just talk at you and lecture you about getting outside. We wanted to provide some ways that you could walk that path if you should want to. If you need a guide in order to think about what you can do, choosedemocracy.us/whatcanIdo is a great resource to look into things that are within your means, things that maybe people are posting locally within your area, something that could matter to you.
If you want to enact what, to be very clear, is 100% your First Amendment right to protest, 5051 holds distinctly organized protests that you can attend if you feel safe to do so.
If you are somebody who is from overseas or somebody who is not here and you want to help out in other ways around your country and around things that are happening to you locally, Doctors Without Borders is a great organization that's
Always
putting
incredible.
a lot of effort into taking care of people through a lot of global crises.
Always
And we
incredible.
also have a QR code here for charity support, which is a charity navigator website that can help you look at navigating different charities that you might care about. You can look at different causes you might care about. You can look at your location, maybe see if there's anything local that you can help out with, if that's something that you want to do.
Metaphor ReFantazio in blissful times would be an engaging, beautifully made, turn-based fantasy RPG. But we do not live in blissful times. Metaphor ReFantazio in forsaken times is as much a warm embrace to explore struggle and opposing viewpoints as it is a desperate plea to launch you back out into the world, inspired and ready and knowing that the world is what we make of our hope and our willpower. Fantasy lives on, hope never dies. Long live the king. Thank you for coming to our panel.
So we have a couple of minutes for Q&A. If anybody would like to chat, ask any questions, we have a microphone here in the middle that you can line up and chat with us. Again, I am second driver Rinny. You can find me in all these beautiful websites, Blue Sky, TikTok, Insta, and also VGen if you want me to draw something for you.
I have been first driver Raven. She's the faster driver, but there's some politics behind it. I stream regularly on Twitch. I would absolutely love to have all of you in our community, or you can follow me on Blue Sky and scream at me there. Please don't scream at me. I'm very sensitive.
And again, here are the resources if you
and
want
Twitch
to take
chat.
a look at
I know
that.
you're watching Twitch chat. You're right next to you're on Twitch. You can totally do it.
Hi, how can we help?
Hi, so this is a question that is inherently going to involve some spoilers for the Mustari Island dungeon, the discovery of what lies beneath it, and to a lesser extent, the Elda Sanctuary near the climax of the game.
All right, if nobody wants any spoilers, cover your ears. Continue.
So Metaphor is a post-apocalypse brought on by old humanity discovering and weaponizing magic to an extent that they turn themselves into the crazed, destructive humans that we see throughout the game, to the point that word has completely taken on a new destructive meaning. And throughout both those segments mentioned, you discover remnants of old humanity and what was left of a world.
It's very spooky.
Do you think that the themes of this whole world of Uchronia secretly being a post-apocalypse tie into or perhaps undermine the director's message in that this kind of great change towards a better world is possibly only achievable through apocalyptic events?
That sounds like Louis Guillaume talk to me.
I don't think it undermines the message at all. I think, to me personally, and you can say otherwise, the idea that this society, that this kingdom, that these people came after tremendous struggle makes it more beautiful, makes it more interesting, especially if they're working harder to bring their society and their beliefs and taking care of each other back to the forefront. I do think it makes it a very, very fascinating background for that there were people who did not follow those things, and now we are here because they didn't do that. I'm
split because it's an Etrian Odyssey reference.
Yes.
Like the dungeon is block for block an Etrian Odyssey dungeon, and so it already has these other links that it's working with. But I mean, thematically, what can we speak to thematically? I don't think there's anything in this game that says failure happened, and so honestly, I don't know if hope can persevere. But I do think that it's well aware of how struggle and progress is a cycle. And it is this panel's opinion that all histories, fictional or especially real, arc toward progress. It's just never a straight line.
Thank you. If you have a question, you could just follow the line. Thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Happy MAGFest.
So I have been actually picking apart this game to work on eventually my own panel on the deconstruction and reconstruction of character tropes and archetypes in Metaphor, because I find that really interesting.
Yeah.
But one of the things I found where the more I was reading, rereading the game and replaying it and reading extra notes, is that a lot of the characters, especially the Parapists, read as almost black or brown people in real life.
Yeah.
Do you think that is kind of accidental, or do you think that was very purposeful by the creators?
Ooh. So for the record, I'm Latina, and I definitely felt that way about those characters as well. So I completely feel you. we can't say if it was purposeful or not, because unfortunately we didn't make the game. But I feel like for a lot of fantasy stories, there is almost always a like fantasy creature, humanoid character that is a stand-in for POCs. And I feel like the problem with that can be how that kind of race, quote unquote, is depicted. But also, for me personally, I really like the idea of being a cool dog person. You know, it's really, really hard to really kind of like parse. And I think in Metaphor specifically, they use those struggles that a lot of POCs have, a lot of BIPOC folks have, and put those into those tribes, into those races. And I feel like it helps them convey the metaphor, convey the story, without directly putting a spotlight on it. You know, and whether or not that's a positive thing is more up to you. Something I really appreciate is that the protagonist himself is a person of color. And I feel like that really helps also send the message because, you know, he is the most oppressed race, the most oppressed tribe within the game. And also to us, the audience, to us who live on planet Earth, he is a POC individual. Whether or not that's on purpose, I feel like it would be weird if it wasn't on purpose.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only element of this that I feel like I have the life experience to speak to, which is that I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons so long that I have seen the fantasy world that is like, oh, orcs, you know, the stupid race, you know, orcs like the one that's really strong and stupid, and then you go, hey, that's a really bad look. You guys should have thought much more about this before you did this. It does seem like when creators don't think about these things, when they're making works that have these features, they end up hurting people really, really, really fast. And it does feel thought through from an empathetic perspective.
In Metaphor.
In Metaphor.
Yeah.
Not in old D&D. Good Lord. Oh, God. Good Lord.
Did that answer? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to go to your panel. That's a great idea.
I know. DM us.
Yeah, that's a really
when you
good
get
idea.
your panel together.
That's a really sick idea.
I
for
would
a panel.
absolutely love it, and I would send you tips, and I want to brainstorm with you. That's such a cool idea. Hello.
Hello.
So, this one is less of a question, more of a comment.
Cool.
That's fine.
I noticed when we were talking about comparing like Metaphor's perspective on analyzing social structures versus Persona's way of answering social structures. First of all, glad you did that because like I never actually took it into consideration for how Atlus kind of like did basically the same thing with two different plot points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the main thing that I just thought about was like, well, this is kind of a charitable reading of it, I suppose, especially for like Persona 5s. But I would argue like one reason why it kind of feels like a little bit less fleshed out is just because of the nature of psychology.
Yeah.
Just because like it is a very in-out perspective versus like Metaphor's more anthropological, sociological look.
I love that take.
Which is more like out-in.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love that take.
From like a more personal perspective, it was kind of like when I was trying to figure out if I wanted to go into psychology or social work. Because they do almost exactly the same thing, but they have a very different understanding of how change can occur.
Yeah.
Where like the social worker works with the resources from within the community and the goal is to keep the person working in that community. But the goal of the psychologist is to focus on yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And by looking inward to your own power, not persona, you can manifest that change. And so with that reading in mind, I'm wondering like how that changes a perspective and how you look at those two narratives.
So I think the thing with Persona, like you said, is that it's a kind of a more individual within the self perspective. And I think, for the record, and I want to clarify this, that is meaningful. That is important.
For sure.
You should always look at yourself and think about in the ways in which you could take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, be better for yourself, you know? Not for anybody else, but for yourself. You're the one who has to live with you.
We need to show up for our communities to make the world better, but we must show up for ourselves in order to do that.
And I think the difference with that in Metaphor is that, you know, using Persona 5 again as an example, is that in Persona 5, it is really, really good that we took out a horrible teacher that was abusing his students. But Metaphor, let's say if that plot line happened in Metaphor, at the very least, I think what would happen was, all right, let's look at the education system. What allowed this teacher to be in a place of power that he could do this to his students? And I feel like the difference there is that in Persona, An, you know, having been hurt by this teacher, she's a character who really, really matters to me. An is able to not have that abuse be all she is, that she's able to grow past that identity that people put on her. And that's really, really important. And it's really important to take care of yourself and love yourself and help yourself, because if you do so, ideally, you can do something here. And, you know, like you can feel like you want to give that to others.
I feel like maybe like there's this ultimate difference of Persona 5's focus is so much more on doing right by individual wrongs, and Metaphor is about, again, these larger cultural, structural things that must be changed. There isn't anything wrong at all with go get the abusive teacher. There's nothing wrong at all with go stop the terrible, evil politician guy. The wrong in P5's case is ultimately where it just goes, all right, I think we're done here. I think we took out one bad teacher, and now sexism in school is over. And it's where it goes, yeah, no, I think we did it. I think we accomplished that. The world is now safe. It's the issue. Whereas, I'm not going to spoil too much, but it was the epilogue of Metaphor that led to us making this panel, because the epilogue, without saying too much, is so banging over the head. This is a long, difficult road to walk, and it's worth walking, but it's a long road.
The story doesn't end with the world is better, we live in a utopia now. The story ends with, okay, now that we did all that, what else do we got to do?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
If you don't mind my asking, what direction did you end up going with your studies? Really
I
quick.
wound up choosing a third option.
Oh my God.
Spicy.
So now
The Shin Megami Tensei option.
Yes.
Right. So I chose the neutral route, and I wound up actually becoming a special ed teacher.
Oh my
Ooh,
God.
that's beautiful.
Seriously, thank you so
It's
much.
my first year.
Thank you so much. We need more of you out there.
Hello. We have about 10 minutes or so, just people can still line up, just letting you guys know.
Yep, just thank you again for the panel, and
Thank you.
you for those donation links. As someone who donates to groups
Can
like...
you get a little closer to the mic? It's hard to hear you.
So, yeah, thank you again for the panel.
Thank you.
And thank you again for the donation links. I'm someone who donates to organizations like AP News for integral journalism and stuff. I like to also see if I can help, but I was more thinking in response to the first person's talk about the post-apocalyptic part as someone who's more innately familiar with Etrian Odyssey.
Yes.
Thematically, it actually worked with your panel, since thematically, Etrian Odyssey is, as a game, about having a flawed start, having a flawed team, but still overcoming. In Etrian Odyssey, for example, the gameplay, they deliberately designed the gameplay so that you are stuck with just 5 party members at a time. So you're gonna miss some important element a class can provide. You might miss on debuffs, you might miss on healing, you might miss on magic even, or damage type. But no matter how many labyrinths you cross through, no matter how many times you die, heck, you might even make mistakes on who you choose to align with, or there's a plot twist, you're accidentally killing a race that is innocent. But throughout each journey, you learn better, you learn the truths of the labyrinth, you learn that this is apocalyptic Earth, but your heroes still decide to go through it, go through the labyrinth, fight whatever monsters they come across, and ultimately do triumph over and solve the corruption of the labyrinth or the tree. But it's not always over. There's town building afterwards, there's always post-games. Heck, there's usually filling out the discovery, and in later games, exploring the planet beyond or world beyond.
That's really cool.
in
I-
a
That's
way,
really cool.
I really think that in terms of Etrian Odyssey, it's honestly adds to the theme of it, and why, even though the Etrian Odyssey cameo technically doesn't connect with the actual lore of the original Etria, it's still, in a way, kind of a metaphor and kind of an overall connects with
Like,
the theming of
thematically,
It's
it
thematically
connects.
cohesive.
both. And
Yeah.
honestly, that's why I appreciate the cameo in a way.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
to me, when you bring up Persona 5, it really feels like Metaphor as a game feels like kind of a coalescence of everything Atlus has done.
Yes,
Yes,
Decision
I
agreed.
agree.
And that's why I really appreciate them also with Etrian. Beyond the EG remix, they brought that in because thematically, it shows it is a long struggle and people make mistakes.
Yep.
As you mentioned, the Persona 5 and its spin-offs are often smaller in scope, but with this story, they managed to kind of show that, yeah, things are bigger, things are struggling. And which also brings it back to the original Atlus games, which were Shin Megami Tensei.
Yeah,
and
without
I
a
think
doubt.
that's really cool. Like, so I only played a little bit of Atrian Odyssey. I've never really focused on it. I'm more of a Persona Devil Survivor girly. I need more Devil Survivor so bad, you guys.
And everyone in this room needs to buy Soul Hackers 2. It did
I
not
know.
sell anywhere near enough.
Oh my, thank you.
Taste.
So first, thank you so much for donating. It's really important to
Thank
that
you.
cause. And second, that makes me very like interested in trying out
Yeah.
more Atrian Odyssey stuff. It's really exciting.
The Ancient Collection is very good, and if you want a very good, if you really want good story-wise, though, 3 is probably my favorite.
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah, we'll definitely take a look at that. And
I
I think
love
it's
it.
really cool. Like you said, the coalescence of the Atlus games.
But also how the gameplay works. Like,
Yeah.
when I looked at the development, it's like, this game is deliberately hard, but because...
All Atlus games are hard,
dude.
except P5.
It's like, why 5 party members specifically?
Yeah.
He explained, oh, yes, it's because if we covered 6, you would be on the
All right.
Dragon Quest game or a typical
Yeah.
RPG.
Well, I think we'll definitely take a look at
Yeah.
that. That's really cool.
Thank you so much, man. That's a great rec.
I love your Alba cosplay.
Thank you. Oh, that's allowed.
No,
I know.
everybody heard you.
Alba's showing up the metaphor panel. So I low-key don't have any questions. I just wanted to like go off of what you guys said because I'm like #1 glazer of this game.
Yes.
Yeah. So like, whenever I meet Persona fans that haven't played Metaphor, I'm like, guys, you're literally missing out on like the best Atlus game. I'm
really
sorry,
is.
but like, yeah. Anyway.
It's not even one versus the other. It's just all been building to
Yeah,
this. You're
yeah.
missing what it's been building
And
to.
I'm like, as the woker, you know, I'm like, I love how intersectional this game is. So like, I have a whole rant about it. I won't spend too much time.
You
but-
can definitely, for the record, like we can talk to us.
We'll be outside afterwards.
I'll make it concise. But
Yeah.
I just love how intersectional it is because as someone who went to Catholic school and has like major Catholic school trauma, I have seen how much like power a lot of and I'm sure you have all seen this in like this day and age, the power that like religion has to control the masses and
Yeah.
spread like paranoia. Not saying that like religion is necessarily bad, but it can turn into something like we see in Metaphor. So I do really love that it actually touches on like the combination of like politics and religion and how that can turn into like what we have in Metaphor or real life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
You know.
how
without a doubt.
intertwined like also racism and discrimination and like fear of nothing actually like
Yep.
creates, you know, such paranoia. And I'm like, wow, this really hits home for me. And yeah, so I'm just like, that is incredible. And I also love how like they also address privilege.
Yes.
Because I feel like in a lot of games, it's like, oh yeah, like you were saying, like the Power Piss, for example, it's like, oh yeah, like normally, they're just like that, you know, like
Yes.
in other games when they see like the furry characters, they're like, oh yeah, they're just like weird or whatever. They don't ever
Yep.
address like the stereotypes that they have
Yes.
of
For
the
sure.
characters.
Or the systemic problems that made it
Exactly.
so they are
Yep.
like that, quote
Yes.
unquote.
And like Fidelio and Basilio, oh my god, don't get me started. Don't get me started. That's like, I love their backstory
Yes.
and like how much it addresses also like the systemic oppression that the Purpose have faced. Also like with Katharina and also like expectations and like stereotypes, like with the UGs, for example. And even like with the Nydia, you know, like being like, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we have to be like the, you know, it's like the, you have to be this way to gain the favor. Like the Parapists are like the worst, looked on the worst. So yeah, I just love how like intersectional it is and how many parallels you can draw like to real life.
Yeah.
And I love how like even Stroll and like Hulkenberg, was two of like the most privileged tribes, like they acknowledge their privilege and they use their privilege to like defend or like help amplify the voices of those that are oppressed, especially in like Hulkenberg's Bond specifically.
Yes, I really like that.
Yes, I love how like Hulkenberg acknowledges. She's not just like, oh yeah, like don't like she actively defends Will and like allows him to state his voice, and I'm like, that is so and the same with Stroll too, but especially with Hulkenberg, because like Will's directly facing that like discrimination, and she uses her voice, like her privilege, to help
and to elevate.
Yes,
his.
exactly. Like,
exactly.
So like, hey, this isn't right,
Yes, and absolutely. After this, we will absolutely glaze
Yes.
this game more.
Yes.
But that is something that really mattered to me because, as somebody who is a person of faith, it really, 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 really makes me angry how people use it as an excuse to mistreat other people.
Exactly.
That's not what that's supposed to be for.
Yes.
And for Metaphor to not take the classic like RPG angle of religion's bad, and that's it. That's the entire conversation. I really like that there's a focus on the positive aspects that a belief system can bring you, and also the aspects that a belief system can be used to harm others. And I really, really like that Metaphor doesn't take the stance of let's get rid of this, and instead like let's love each other's beliefs.
Yes,
exactly.
100%. We have a little less than 5. We will speak to every single person outside. No worries, no worries, no worries.
I will try to. Oh, sorry. I will try to be brief. Then I will say, day job English professor. I kind of have to say, mind you, utopia literally means no place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be
Yeah.
aspirational. It has to be an ideal.
It has to be.
But I think there's something thematic that's worth being said when you compare persona and metaphor. The Velvet Room versus talking to more.
Yeah.
The Velvet Room, you're building yourself up. You're always building your own strength. And yes, there's Igor, there's your attendants, but it's always, Protag Kun has to be Protag Kun.
Yep.
Meanwhile, I'm not going to spoil who Moore is, but knowing who Moore is.
Yes.
Seeking
for sure.
wisdom from someone else. Seeking wisdom from someone who's walked enough in those shoes to get it, I think is an important point of it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah,
Yes.
and also in the what is it called, the Moore's cool room, you also help like your friends' abilities grow.
Yeah.
It's not just about the you, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, no. It is not about going into the Velvet Room where your protagonist can do the stuff that only he can do because that dude's sick as heck.
I mean, we love our our wild cards. We love our fools, but
Of course.
the fact that you're building other people up and that you're seeking wisdom, I think, is something that they should have done a lot sooner.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed. Fully agreed.
Thank you so much. And
I
again,
am going to let other people yap.
yes, and again,
Yes.
we will be outside. We can check. Louis, what do you have to say
What do you have to for yourself?
for yourself? You must speak for all of Louis.
So actually, it was a question about me.
No, you feel
Oh,
free.
yeah,
We're just joshing
We're
you.
just joking.
But more about like the Louis and despair aspect. So one thing that I like saw in him, that's my interpretation, was like he's very jaded.
Yes.
character.
Yep, for sure.
And so there was something that I was kind of wondering, like speaking with Stroll about, but why at the end of the game does he reach out to Will?
What does he reach? What?
Like why does he reach out to Will to ask him to join him?
Oh, well.
That's kind of
So the question was, why does Louis reach out to Will
towards like endgame.
towards the end of the game to like work together, right? One, Will is awesome.
Will's sick
at this
and
point-
based, and it's cool to reach out to
And
him.
at this point, I think Will has proven Will's strength of character, strength of just strength and ability, and also mental like strength and belief and spiritual fortitude. So I think Louis, being one of the best villains ever written in video games, recognizes that in the protagonist, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I just took it as Louis just can't, he just doesn't believe that hope persists for Will, that both of them have, without saying too much, some life experiences that overlap. And so as a result, it leads to this kind of like, well, isn't this hate, like, isn't this cynicism inside of you too? It has to be. It just has to be. And for Will, It just doesn't. He is the embodiment of our ability to hope for better. And it's that wins. It's not my broken all merchant party.
Also, I think something that Louis does is the classic, like, hurt people.
Yeah.
Louis
Yeah,
comes
for
from
sure.
a background that does. You do understand where Louis is coming from with a lot of stuff. And if we're to believe that the might makes right is the ultimate end of what society should be, then Will has shown himself to be one of the mightiest. I don't feel, and people can read this differently, I don't feel like Louis is reaching out and going like, you know what, your hope matters. I think Louis is reaching out and going, your strength is what matters. And I want your strength on my side so we can do the really cool thing I want to do.
Yeah. But that's just us.
Thank you, Louis.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We are out of time. Thank you so much for giving us a chunk of your MAGFest. We will be outside for anyone who wants to chat. Please keep in touch. We consider you all fast friends, and we hope you have a killer weekend.
And for anybody who was curious, we are dressed as Formula One racers because
they're named
metaphor
after-
characters were initially named after Formula One racers.
They're all named after Formula One racers.